Let's see. Are we online now? Yeah, maybe yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome everybody to this new webinar, this new session in AGV Network. Please let me know if you are all connected. Hello, we have Brian from South Carolina. Wonderful. We know you, Brian. We have people from, as usual, from all around the world. Just please chat there. Let me know if you can hear us well. If the video is fine, if the audio is fine. Hello from India. Hello, Sayan. Pleased to meet you. Just a couple of minutes just to give the people the opportunity to connect. We have Baptiste from France. Hello, Baptiste. Wonderful. Just let me give you some just two concepts about this webinar. Okay, my name is Alfredo Pastor. I'm in charge of content creation in AGV Network. I work in an Italian integrator, so I deal with mobile robots every day. And we used to make this kind of webinars where we invite cutting-edge companies to show their latest technologies, some disruptive solutions. Okay. Today, this webinar I will introduce later on, but just to operational stuff. You have here the possibility to write on the chat. Okay, so feel free to pose your questions in the chat. The chat will be moderated. It means that we will see all the questions, and then at the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A section where we will be able to answer to all these questions. Okay, so hello, Ariel in Argentina. So today we are gonna speak about something quite different, okay, compared that we are used to, because we talk typically about mobile robot solutions. So from my point of view, I know everything about safety, communication, navigation. I'm quite aware of all of these things, okay. But when this new solution was proposed to me, and I said, oh my, this is very interesting. Today we are going to talk about remote operated forklifts. So imagine someone driving a forklift miles away, connected. I don't know how. These guys will explain us today how do they connect, how does it work, how is it safe. So I think that today we are going to see something very interesting that is some kind of window of the future, because I think that more and more applications will be remotely operated in the material handling business. And for doing this, of course, we have the best as usual. We have on one side this cooperation that is being done by Phantom Auto and SICK to make these tow tractors and forklifts remotely operated. And we have Aswin and we have Aaron that will explain us all these things. And it's a real pleasure for me to have them here. So I will not introduce you guys. It's better if you do all by your own. And just Aswin, can you just explain who you are, what is Auto Phantom doing? And then Aaron, please just let us know what is your role in SICK, in the SICK team, and what are you doing? And then we will go ahead with the presentation, okay?
Sounds good. Welcome, everyone. You can hear me loud and clear? Awesome. Well, welcome. My name is Ashwin Lalendran. I am the VP of Product at Phantom Auto, a company based out of San Francisco. We have offices in Denver, Israel, and in Sweden. And yeah, we do remotely operated forklifts, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Over to you, Aaron.
Yep. Hi, I'm Aaron Shelkey. I am a part of the SICK Safety Serial Products Group. So I work with the various safety products that we have and figure out how to put them together to solve the different applications that we're working on.
Great. So we start now with the presentation. Aswin, you are the first one, if I'm not wrong. Okay. So just let me just show this your presentation. Give me a moment. I remember everybody that you can and no, you are obliged to listen to carefully to this presentation, and then please put your questions there, and we will be more than happy to answer to them at the end of in the Q&A section. So well, Aswin, it's up to you. I just unmute myself, and go ahead. Okay, the show is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alfredo. And thank you to the SICK team. We are Phantom, again, as I mentioned, we've got locations all around the world, and we're just thoroughly impressed with the SICK team, and looking forward to telling you a little bit more about what Phantom does. And before we get into what Phantom does, I think I've just moved over to another slide here where we talk about sort of the problem. And the problem we're really solving at Phantom Auto is around driver shortage. And this is probably a problem that you've read about in the news. There's a couple of headlines here about, factories desperate for workers. 73% of warehouse operators can't find enough labor. I think the most telling part of this slide here is the quote in the middle section on the bottom. And I'm just want to read that from one of the companies here. The only applicants we've been getting are middle-aged men in their 50s and 60s. When we do get applicants, anyone younger than 30, they're usually have no more than a month, and they stay no more than 1 month. We are overwhelmed, understaffed, and without applicants. And that's in general what Phantom Auto is seeing across the industry as we have been in market now. And why is this? Part of it is trends with after the pandemic with regards to just demand for warehouse usage. The second part is around the gig economy, where some of these workers who were previously working in warehouses are now doing Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, etc. And in general, it's I think we've just got people that have other options, and so. This is, you see this with FedEx, the senators talking about this, and this is where Phantom comes in. Phantom fundamentally does the following, and that is we solve the supply chain labor shortage with human-centered remote operations. I'll show you a couple of photos in the coming slides and maybe even some videos. But fundamentally, what we're doing is we're moving the labor to where the labor is actually available. And I can give you an example where I was at a customer site recently, and the director went through the multiple distribution centers for this multinational corporation across the United States. And they said that, look, over the last 2 years, we've had turnover of like 200% for forklift operators. And so the work is available, in these warehouses. And you can kind of see a mini visual on the right-hand side of this slide. Where in the warehouses, the work is available, but what we're doing with Phantom is bringing people from different geographies that can connect and disconnect between warehouses from various different locations. And the interesting thing about this is that, oops, let me go to this next slide here. There we go. Is that this is resonating with our customers. We are deployed and at customer sites, and we're actively scaling today. This is something that the industry is taking note of. One of the large organizations within North America for logistics, the trade association MHI, awarded Phantom the Innovation Award for the best new product in 2022. We also were awarded the best invention by Time in 2022. And so 2023 for us is very much actively scaling. And this is where partnerships with folks like SICK, and I'll get into a little bit about sort of our safety approach here shortly, is just critical to accelerating our product into market. The other thing I think that's relevant here is, and I'll just move over to the next slide, if you don't mind, Alfredo, with the video, and we can keep it on mute. But what I want to show with this video is this will give you a window into just how, let me just move back, oops, that there's really no capital outlay from our customers. We can show up at a customer site within minutes be up and running. And I'm going to play this here. There we go. And I'm going to just keep it on mute and just sort of narrate. It's very, very short video. And you can see the controllers. You can see this ability to connect, operator connecting from one location to another. And then very quickly disconnecting. That same operator connecting to a whole new location, a new customer site. Back again, back to okay. This is a here is where this ability to teleoperate. So teleoperating between warehouses, and I hope that sort of gives sort of a very a visual between how our concept of operations is. And then I think you got a brief window also with that last video around just the simplicity of our deployment. Our deployment, in essence, consists of a PlayStation controller and some pedals, but the real technology is this here. And there's a lot of words on this, but I want to just sort of maybe talk through a couple things that's relevant. The way I see what Phantom sees, what we do is very much how this technology, whether it's Zoom, Google Meets, what they do for meetings like this, so video streaming for meetings like this, or what Netflix does for Hollywood movies. Phantom Auto has been doing this for about 6-7 years now, and that is video streaming for industrial applications in low network environments. And we are very focused on the material handling industry, in this indoor environment, and the core technology that we have honed in and sharpened over the last several years is about this ultra low latency. And why is ultra low latency important? Yeah, of course, you're carrying 5,000 plus pounds of product, whether it be toilet paper or pet food. We're carrying pianos in one of our customer sites. So it's all over the map. And then the other part of this is we're also in fairly extreme conditions, in minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit environments, and maybe for the Celsius folks, this is we're in minus 30 degrees Celsius and lower, and this is something that we're actively improving in our capabilities. But fundamentally, the core technology is around video streaming under Wi-Fi, LTE, 4G, 5G, and many more options. So this is really how and I'll show you a couple windows of what it looks like. But I want to sort of move on to the next part, and this is very relevant to the topic that we have here, that we've been talking about here is how do we do this safely? And so first, let me just explain that, just sort of contextualize that safety is the most important value for us in our product development process. And why is that? I mean, maybe I'm stating the obvious here. But we just don't have a person on these forklifts. Now, is it autonomous? No, it's not autonomous. But we actually think that there are a whole host of edge cases that our solution with regards to remote operations is so uniquely positioned. One example is this ability to connect and disconnect. So really increasing the utilization of our labor. But when it comes to sort of the safety, we have this multi-tiered approach to safety, and it's with human in the loop. So that's where the vehicle remains in human hands, and then the second and the third stages. The second stage is very much where we partner with SICON, and that is this using LiDAR and safety encoders. And Aaron will talk to you more specifically about some of the specific products that we use in coordination with SICK. But why is this important? This is important because it has this ability to augment our human-centric view of our deployments. And frankly, we just don't see that in the market today. You can see sort of a bottom in the bottom right corner, where you have an operator, let's say, next to my desk in San Francisco, connecting to a forklift on the left-hand side, in the visual on your screen, connecting to a vehicle in Kansas City or, in Rome, Italy. This is the sort of last part, the complementary measures, where we can start to now augment the screen and the operator view with things like protective zones, or we call this RDAS, and that is very similar sort of to the ADAS and inspired by, in the automotive space, and that's advanced remotely driver-assisted systems. things like where your forks are, or where you're, and I'll show you a video here shortly, but how the LiDAR fields are just sort of visualizing LiDAR fields to the operator to just give them broader situational awareness. Move on to our next slide here. And so what we're talking about here is this is where SICK comes in, the second piece. And I don't know, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger there. So of course, a lot of our deployments and are constrained and guided by industry standards. So for example, the ANSI B56.5, the AGV standard, or we've got sort of software design to meet ISO standards. But the obstacle detection, avoidance, and collision protection is something that Aaron will talk about here shortly. And I think I've kind of talked to you about sort of human in the loop and the complementary controls. So I want to go to the following slide, because I think this is also fairly powerful here. And this is the visual I was alluding to before. This is a picture that was taken very, very recently. Let me just make sure that you can see it. Yep. That was taken very recently in one of our command centers, where we have a whole host of operators that can disconnect and connect to multiple sites. And this is part of our business offering, and that is, one is the vehicles that we provide with safety and other off-the-shelf sensors. But the other part is what we call remote operators as a service. And this is fundamentally what we talked about sort of before, and that is the deploying labor where and when you need it with a click of a button. Some of the value propositions we offer to our customers is around reducing labor cost. I'll get to the safety here in a second, but the third part is increasing operational flexibility and efficiency. For example, you can imagine us operating. We're doing this today at a whole host of customer sites where we're at doing the graveyard shift, where they just don't have workers to come in at midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning to set up for the following morning. And then the second part here in terms of the paradigm shift is around improving safety. There's a whole host of reasons of how we do that, and again, Aaron will talk to you about some of those specifics. But from a Phantom perspective, and this is what really gets me excited, is you think about operators that are not churning through a particular warehouse at a customer site. So, i.e., where they come in, and we've heard these stories where operators start at one warehouse, one customer, and they stay, they get their bonus, they start operating forklifts, and then after their 6 week or 7 week bonus expires, they go to the next warehouse, which is right across the street, and then they do the same thing, and then they go across the next one, and they come right back to the original customer, original warehouse. And so why is that relevant? That's relevant because by keeping operators in their seats for long periods of time, we actually do improve safety. And this is one of the things that Phantom takes responsibility for, is we're not just providing these operators remotely in more comfortable environments, but we're also training them, and we're taking responsibility for certifying remote operators as well. And that to me is really, really exciting because of the following point. You can just imagine we have a couple people on our staff that do this, but wounded warriors, folks that are on wheelchairs that previously could not operate a forklift, are in different countries, and are now providing valuable service to our customers. And so this is the sort of the really interesting part of the Phantom business in my mind, and that is this human-centered remote operations, where we are actually in this world of a lack of labor, we're actually increasing the labor pool, not just because of geography, but also because of accessibility. And that's really a big part of what drives the mission of a lot of our people at Phantom Auto. So with that said, I'm going to move to another slide here. That's to give you a window of, I'm just going to let this play. This is a long video, and I see the questions coming in, but so we can address that shortly. I'm going to just play this and hit mute. And this is a long video, so I'm just going to talk over this. But what you are seeing here is sort of this different stages of our operations. And our client has changed and is continuously changing. But what you're seeing is two different views. One is a warehouse cam of one of our warehouses where we test in San Francisco on the top. And then on the bottom, you see our operator client. And this is, in this particular example, you've got an operator in Denver that is controlling a vehicle, this particular vehicle in San Francisco. And so this is very, very real. This is, over the last 10, 15 years, I've been working with automation at startups, at big companies like Apple, with the government, at the Air Force, deploying drones. And what really excites me is that what you're seeing here is on this spectrum of manual operations on one side, autonomous operations on the other side. We see ourselves very much right in the middle with remote operations. And remote operations, we truly believe at Phantom, is this underappreciated part of the market. And our customers are telling us the same thing too. A lot of our customers have tried different solutions and now are coming back to us, partly because they see the pragmatism, the technical maturity of our offering. And that's what you're seeing here. In this particular video, you're seeing a trailer unload and a trailer load operation. And this is one of many, many examples. You can kind of see the teaming here too. There's multiple vehicles operating in the same environment. The reason that's relevant is, connecting back to our core IP about streaming and how we have uniquely, and our engineering teams have uniquely built our technology stack to stream all this video and all these controls with very low latency. And I just want to go back to sort of the workflow piece. This is an example of the trailer load unload, but we can do operating at height with different vehicles than what you see here. We can do cross dock. There's a whole host of, and also what you're not seeing here is environments like refrigerated and then much colder or hotter environments. And those are some of the sort of the most taxing environments for humans to operate in. So with that, let me go back to our deck here. Thank you, Alfredo. And actually, that is a good segue into to what Aaron is going to talk to about that second piece around how the functional safety system really is for us. And the last thing I'll say, Aaron, just to kind of set you up here, because we truly believe this at Phantom. I just want to not belabor this point, but really emphasize it. Is safety is a critical piece of our DNA and our product development process, how we design, how we test, how we validate, and how we eventually ship into our customer hands. Because all the good things that I talked to you about, where there's a demand for what we want, our customers want it, but fundamentally we miss out and we skip out if we are not prioritizing safety. And a big part of prioritizing safety is both internally, how we track incidents, how we collect data, how we augment our existing sensors with sort of an independent safety system. But the other part is also externally through the partners that we work with, and that's really where SICK's both history and lineage and expertise is something that Phantom Auto has really relied on. So with that said, Aaron, I'll transition that over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ashwin. So as far as safety goes, we've been talking a lot about the safety, obviously, of the vehicle in different ways. We've been talking about product that can go onto the vehicle, and then different concepts that Phantom is implementing, kind of at the vehicle level. and how that operates. For now, we're going to focus more just on the hardware components that go into the solution that Phantom is implementing on these teleoperated forklifts. The cool thing about this solution that we are using there is that it's really a solution that revolves around some common components from SICK. This is actually something that we call FE Pro, not a term that you're going to find elsewhere outside of SICK, but it is it is kind of our internal kind of speak when it comes to talking about combining different components to solve a more complex application simply. And so that FE Pro system can be adapted to lots of different scenarios. It could be potentially just stationary type applications. It could be fully autonomous applications. And as we're talking about here today, we can apply that also then to teleoperated applications as well. And so really this FE Pro system revolves around our controller, some different safety sensors that tie into that. And really that whole system ultimately gives you the ability to handle the various signals from the safety sensors of the application, do some logic between those different devices. And then importantly for this teleoperated application is we are able to then dynamically change some of the safety parameters on the fly as that vehicle does different things within its course of actions, the different movements, the different tasks that it needs to carry out. And so that is, again, where we're kind of going to dive into a little bit more on the component level here next. So if you could, Alfredo, next slide. Thank you. So we've got then a couple of those main components that I kind of alluded to briefly in that introduction there. The components that really go into the teleoperated forklift from the safety side of things is the FlexiSoft, which really is an expandable safety controller. You can think of it as a safety PLC, but it's really a little bit, it's lower scale when it comes to just the size of application you're trying to tackle with that type of hardware. But this is where you do get that ability to do some programming and do your signal interfacing. We also have some expansion modules that can be added on. One of those being an expansion card for taking in the encoder inputs. And so that allows us to then potentially look at velocity of the vehicle and the turning or the steering of the vehicle at that current moment in time. We also then look at what we call our microscan, which is really a safety laser scanner. And so the safety laser scanner is the eyes or the second pair of eyes on the application, where the teleoperator is kind of primary when it comes to making sure that they're operating the vehicle safely, and they're noticing or seeing obstacles or people in the path of travel. But just like a manned fork truck would be, people can become distracted, things might be missed, and we use the safety laser scanner really as that secondary set of eyes to pick up anything that maybe is missed by the operator. And you can have a suite of these, so you could have these mounted around, multiple locations of the vehicle to ensure that you get full coverage around that full vehicle. Additionally, on this application, we have some of those safety encoders that I mentioned with the FlexiSoft. Actually, Alfredo, if you want to just go back one slide, sorry. So the safety encoders here, we do have two different types that are out there, and these do have safety ratings, where typically most encoders that kind of have been out on the market previously have been more in the non-safe space. That expansion module that does take the encoder information, it doesn't have to be from these safety rated encoders. It potentially could be off of motor feedback, or it could be coming off, prox sensors that are creating a pulse. So there's some different ways to get that signal in there, but to minimize the amount of hardware and achieve safety, like Phantom is focusing on here, safety rated product like encoders can just minimize the hardware components necessary to achieve those levels of safety that may be sought after. Okay, sorry, Alfredo, if you want to advance. So what you would find on a vehicle, just from a task standpoint, and some of the things that you might be looking to do, and where some of those devices may be located on these vehicles. As I mentioned, some laser scanners mounted down at about ground level, looking for those different obstacles. Again, we mentioned that these have the ability to potentially switch the safety fields based off of those different real-time parameters, such as velocity and steering. We also then have the ability within that FlexiSoft control to monitor those different signals. So obviously, if infringement of those protective fields that Ashwin was talking about, if that were to occur, that's going to send a signal to either stop the vehicle, slow it down, or to enunciate to the operator that they need to do something based on the type of field that is being infringed. We also have some ability to monitor speed, and that could be simply based on the tasks. So if a specific task is occurring, maybe there is a limit on the speed. If forks are up high with a load, you obviously don't want to be going too fast, because if you were to stop, that could put some tilt into the vehicle, and you don't want to have a situation where a load could be compromised when it's up high. We also then have the ability to do some other safe motion functions to monitor, to ensure that vehicle parameters are being adhered to during the normal course of operation. And then additionally, you can find some of those additional sensors. And actually, Alfredo, if you want to go to the next slide, this will show that a little bit better. The different types of sensors that you might find on one of these types of applications. So it may be more than what we've already talked about. There may be potential for additional guarding, potentially side guarding, if you're worried about having infringements come into the field of view, or the direction of travel. Up high where the laser scanner maybe is missing, you might have that side protection on there. Obviously, e-stop signals feeding in, as well as then the prox sensors for potentially just knowing when you're at a home position, so that we are, again, making sure that the real life situation that is occurring is what's being then monitored. And so if you want to go next slide, Alfredo, thank you. So what else could we then do with these vehicles? So with these vehicles right now, obviously we have a good solution, and Phantom is constantly kind of updating and optimizing their solution and the program that they use for their safety. And that is something that they work with myself and others on our team to help figure out how best to do that with the products that they use, or maybe potentially other products that they could look at in the future for maybe different applications. And so some of those places that this type of solution could be quickly and easily adapted to is maybe we are talking now about smaller or slower vehicles. So there are other smaller laser scanners out there on the market that might be better fits for the application that we're trying to solve. Other products that are out there, we have outdoor rated safety laser scanners. So if the task or if the application turns out that it needs to be operating outdoors, or maybe it's just running outdoors temporarily from a facility to another facility, but it does need to go outdoors during that short little jaunt. We do have safety certified devices that are also certified for outdoor use and really optimized to operate in those more difficult and challenging environments. We also have some new products, one being the Safe Visionary 2, which is a 3D time of flight camera. So very unlike the 2D laser scanners that we've kind of been talking about up to this point, this is a product that could potentially be adapted if you needed to then monitor some sort of three-dimensional space. And the most common way to think of that is the direction of travel of the vehicle looking outwards in the area above the 2D plane that's being monitored by the safety laser scanners, so that we don't, again, see maybe things sticking into the field of travel, like overhanging racks, or if you maybe have, some, crane, anything from a crane that might be hanging down too low with a load or something like that. Obviously, the 2D laser scanner mounted at a floor level isn't going to pick those types of things up. So this type of product could be adapted or incorporated at a later time to potentially add more safety, or maybe it's a completely different application where that's more of the focus. And then lastly, some other things that could be also looked at in the future with this type of system is navigation. So while we are talking about teleoperated today, Phantom Auto is using a lot of hardware that we do use in autonomous vehicles. So if they ever did decide to make the jump to go to more of an autonomous solution, they have really all the infrastructure and the products to do that, because all of the products that we've talked about up to this point with the different laser scanners provide that measurement data back, which could then be used for mapping or localization, and then ultimately doing its own path planning and navigation. Some of those things are also available through SICK, being mapping and localization. But again, these are all things that don't need a whole lot of redoing the whole safety concept. It's really just add-ons as you need more complexity into the solution. If you want to go to next slide, Alfredo, thank you. So the last slide here is actually kind of a deviation from what we've been talking about here at the product level, but this is actually kind of a good, just kind of a way to kind of recap how did we get here with Phantom from the beginning. When we first started partnering with one another and talking about how to safeguard, one of the questions was, do we need to safeguard these applications? And I think very quickly, Phantom Auto understood that yes, these applications do need to be safeguarded, but to what level? That was still a question mark. And so SICK does offer different safety services. And this is actually where we started with the whole solution, was just doing the risk assessment. So determining what the tasks are, what are the associated risks, and then putting a ranked PLR or performance requirement for their safety, to really put that on paper and do the work to determine what really is required here. And from that risk assessment, we then worked to help design the safety concept and really give and provide Phantom Auto a base level program that would incorporate these different products that we've talked about to start doing those basic functions like field changing of the laser scanners on the fly based off encoder information. And so that we could provide them something very basic to start with, which really helped cut down the amount of time that they needed to put and invest into that aspect of things, so that they could focus on other areas. And now that they've grown, their team has grown. Now they have teams very dedicated to really optimizing that very beginning program and expanding on it, to have it operate more efficiently, but also more safely as more products and more optimization from the different products can be incorporated. And so that's another way that our partnership has continued to grow, is really from these safety services through the continued support of us working together, both on their experiences and our experiences and knowledge sets, and sharing that information to really get to them on the safety side of things to where they are today. So I think from the SICK side, I think that would conclude our portion. And I think at this point, if we are looking to answer some questions.
Yeah, thank you guys. Very interesting. Honestly, we should have 4 or 5 webinars because we could talk about communication, mission management, safety specific, pros, cons, applications, cost. We could talk about hundreds of things, okay? But luckily we have here some questions, okay? I noticed some of these questions. For example, Aswin, what devices do you install into the vehicle? Okay, I think the safety part, Aaron has shown us this safety scanners, safety PLC, other types of cameras, etc. Okay, let's say that from my experience, it's more similar to an AGV, okay, or a mobile robot, so it's easier to understand for me. Okay, excuse me my lack of knowledge, but from the what do you have to install into the vehicles to control them? I mean, what do you put in top of a manual vehicle?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's very. I kind of want to use this slide as a reference here because.
Do you want me to go to one of these slides before?
No. This is a perfect one to answer this question. Good. It touches upon the first answer is it depends, and the more expanded answer to that is tied to this topic of the risk assessment, and a big part of to answer the question of what sensors do you put on, what of the offering that either SICK offers, or just non-safety related sensors, and what do you mount, is related and tied to the type of workflows, the type of applications, the risk that we Phantom are willing to accept and not accept, and also how we are willing to mitigate against some of those risks and the various sort of severity levels. And so I want to just, this is not directly answering your question right now, but I think this is a good opportunity to answer and to talk about sort of how safety is sort of incorporated into our product development process. And so the first stage is sort of defining that risk assessment. And a big part of that is setting expectations with and I'm talking more specifically for our Phantom side right now, setting expectations with our customer success, with our sales teams, with our customers of the type of workflows we can and cannot do at a certain junction of time in our product maturity. So now with that said, now let's say we've drafted that risk assessment and we've got this safety concept and system design for an initial deployment of a brand new vehicle we're going to be taking on. There's so many different levers that are at our engineering team and our product team sort of control, and that is how fast we want to cover, the type of workflows we talked about, and so that's where what are the sensors? It's really and this is where we really have to answer the question based off of BOM cost is another driver, another constraint, right? How much are we willing to make our business work and operate? And so I think there's no one straightforward answer to what are the exact sensors, but it's a constantly evolving part, and I think the most important part to just emphasize here, it's evolving as our product matures and as we learn more about what we can and cannot do in the market.
Another question here that I think is very interesting. Okay, is there needed some kind of a special license to be a remote driver?
That's a great question. So all our operators go through our, and this is again talking from a Phantom perspective. All our operators go through our internally developed training syllabus. and we have sort of a process that is in addition to OSHA standards. And OSHA is sort of one of the organizations that regulates safety on and operating in a manually operated environment. We sort of leverage a lot of those for a remotely operated vehicle as well. So it's a combination of sort of being in compliance with the safety standards. With OSHA. It's this risk assessment piece, and then our own proprietary training that I touched upon earlier.
Okay, wonderful. Then it's another good question, because you are operating Forklift remotely. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
What happens in case of power outage? Okay, if the power is gone, what is happening?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually, this is a great example of emphasizing a couple points. So let me answer the question first. What happens in the case of a power outage? First, our safety system will probably just take over, but our whole system sort of just shuts down. It stops. And when I say shuts down, there's a graceful sort of pause. It stops what it's doing. Now the other part of this is it could be there's power in sort of different. It could be the power in the vehicle. It could be power in the warehouse. It could be power in the Wi-Fi. So it really depends on how we handle it. But this is, again, some of those things that are handled in our risk assessment. And this is a very good specific example of sort of that concept of operations that we would define and then start to mitigate. But one of the things that maybe another follow-on question, I think I saw this in the questions as well, that's related, is around connectivity. What if the network goes down? What if the network is intermittent? And this is a good point to use, where there's not always safety sensors that exist for some of these things, but this is really where Phantom's core IP is, and I kind of touched upon this before. And this is really a credit to our engineering teams that have both our hardware and our software and our safety engineering teams that have built this integrated system around managing the intermittent connectivity. And you just kind of to visualize this, imagine your iPhone or your Android or whatever, your smartphone, and the little bars at the top, right, where you have full connectivity, and then suddenly you go through a tunnel or whatever it is where you have very limited connectivity. That's really where the Phantom solution excels, in my humble opinion, or in Phantom's opinion, around relative to our competitors, is sort of dealing with that intermittent connectivity. So does that answer your question, Alfredo? Sort of two parts.
Yeah, of course. But this comes to another question that is absolutely related from Baptiste. What is the latency?
This is also a great question that requires more of an in-depth answer.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was so simple. No.
But I'm
joking.
more than happy to share. No, this is one that I think we're happy to follow up with you, Baptiste, because this is, again, like I said, this is part of our special sauce.
Okay. One question as well. We have the safety stuff that is managed by all the devices, everything, all the system risk assessment that is together risk seeking you. If I compare again with a mobile robot, what you are doing is the navigation, okay, more or less, okay. So you substitute somehow the navigation, but how do you handle order management? Okay, because if I think in a mobile robot system, we receive orders from a superior software, okay. It's collecting this order, is giving orders to forklifts or autonomous forklifts. There is also priorities, etc., etc., etc. How do you integrate with the ERP or with the WMS in a given customer? Because, okay, you are driving, it's safe, you are navigating, you have the people, okay, but how do you manage these missions?
Yeah, excellent. That's a really, really good question, and a very specific, perceptive one to the material handling industry. So you alluded to sort of the ERP, the warehouse management system, WMS. Again, this is one of those things that Phantom is very much sort of vertically focused on the material handling industry, among other things. And this is why we have, and credit to our customer success team here, where our teams go out to a specific warehouse. And I'm not talking just a specific customer, because we work with multiple customers that have multiple different types of warehouses in different geographies, right? And what we find is a lot of our customers have used multiple different WMS ERP systems. So this is where our customer success teams, where our engineering teams are working with those individual warehouses. And there's a fairly standard set of offerings with regards to WMS. And this is where we work with the individual customers to plan out a deployment. And part of that planning of the deployment, there's multiple steps that go into it, is mapping their network, identifying issues of whether it's Wi-Fi or LTE or 5G. But one part of that is how we take instructions and orders. And so we do have a strategy and this is something that we are shipping into market today. And we're constantly evolving with a whole host of some of these WMS providers.
Okay. Aaron, this time is for you, okay? And I will Johannes is asking, how do you handle safety when we are going to when we are lifting material? Okay, do you need some additional sensor, or how do you handle this in the eighth? I mean, in the racks.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of does depend on if we're looking to monitor that and ensure that we're actually operating at the correct height for the specific task that we are doing. If that's kind of where the question is coming from, I can kind of answer it that way, because yeah, I think other sensor would likely be needed. One of I think I can think of two different ways of potentially doing that. Attached to the racks or the forks themselves going up and down, you would be able to, have a wire draw encoder or potentially some sort of distance sensor mounted on that. So as it goes up, you can monitor the real-time height that is set for those forks, and that would allow you to really have the correct feedback to know if you are within the correct parameters per what you're trying to do. So with that FlexiSoft that we talked about, there is a safety card, for expansion card, that can take analog signals. So again, from a wire draw encoder, or again, maybe a distance sensor that provides some sort of 4 to 20 milliamp output, that could probably be monitored then by the safety system, so that we can ensure that we are in those expected ranges of height. Now, if the question is elsewhere, then I think we would want to take that one offline. But at least at that point, hopefully that gives you a good idea.
Okay. Just so, and well, we are close to 1 hour, but we still have for a couple of questions. I want to go because I saw some question about the outdoor. Okay. Outdoor applications. Okay. If we talk about outdoor, there are two concepts. Okay. The one is safety. Okay. Clearly, in this case, you need to have special devices like your outdoor scan. Okay. For the safety stuff. And then we have also the connectivity and the communication with the vehicle, what is managed by Phantom. Okay. But for you, Phantom, does it change something if it is outdoor or indoors or not?
It's a great question. But we've been spending a lot of our time today on this webinar has been about warehouses and unlocking safer warehouses. If you take a look at some of the recent news on Phantom Auto, we are also partnering and operating outside at yard trucks. And so this is something that this actually is an example of leveraging the infrastructure and the architecture and the institutional knowledge that Phantom has developed in partnership with teams like SICK for a warehouse environment to now a new environment outdoors. What we find is that, again, that core IP about teleoperations, the Phantom IP about streaming in low latency environments, combined with our safety sort of culture, our safety sort of priorities, works just as well in a yard truck or an outdoor environment. So Did I answer your question, Alfredo?
Yeah. I think yes. Yes, of course. What
Mind
the?
if I?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I also want to just touch upon one of these other questions that came up, and I
Sure.
saw it earlier, and that's related to sort of outdoor, indoors, and that was sort of the knowledge of the plant layout. Seems like it's a critical part of navigating systems.
Yeah. Let me. I will. Give me a second. I just publish for everybody. What is it? Public. What is it? Moderated. Yeah, he was talking about the layout. Okay.
Yeah, the layout, and I think this is a good. While you're bringing that up, I'll just sort of echo the sort of repeat the question. Knowledge of a plant layout seems like it is a critical part of navigating safely and efficiently.
Yeah.
How is it handled with remote operators as a service? It would seem that operators are not infinitely interchangeable. And Phantom's fundamental belief here, and what we are now starting to see that hypothesis play in real time as we get out to more customers, is that they are interchangeable. And part of the way that they are interchangeable, and Aaron alluded to this, sort of with a strong safety foundation with regards to our sensors, but also the encoders and how we design our logic and the field sets. It also allows us now to augment our safety system with new IP. And we've talked about sort of the video streaming and the low latency, but there's another part of that, and that is localization. And in fact, something that Phantom is very proud of, and I briefly touched upon that, and that's the RDAS, the Advanced Remotely Driver Assisted System, is we do have technology now that is shipping in at customer sites today that allows us to map the customer site, whether it be a 15,000 square foot warehouse or a 2 million or 3 million square foot warehouse. And that map is sort of an A priority. It's inherited as, let's say, Alfredo, you were logging in your morning from Italy, and then you logged off. And then, I logged in from San Francisco as you were going to sleep. I would have that map already built in. And let's say you parked it on one corner of the warehouse. Our technology allows us to inform me coming in my morning, to know exactly where I am, sort of from a localization perspective in that warehouse. So we truly are, infinitely interchangeable. And we're, of course, building and honing on that. But it also links to another question that came up, and forgive me for just extending this, and that was, how we think what Phantom does is better than an autonomous solution. And of course, different people have different opinions, and our solution doesn't fit every need. But sorry, Alfredo, you had something to say?
No. Here you have this question. Was the last one? Was my last question? We are approaching the 1 hour, and I was saying the last question for you is why is better than an autonomous. So this is the just to close the speech.
Yeah, and again, I'll just start by saying that different people in the industry see this very differently. From a Phantom Auto perspective, and I talked about sort of the spectrum of manual operations on one side and autonomous on the other side, in this sort of remotely operated space. And having worked with autonomous vehicles now for 15 years on ground, aerial, in the ocean, what I see with what Phantom is doing, what we're doing at Phantom, is we really allow a product to evolve and to mature in real time with a multitude of edge cases. And so we can get into market today. We can scale today with a remotely operated vehicle because we are very human-centric. We have a human in the loop, and that also increases utilization of that human. So we can, someone that is working in Denver, for example, in a manual operations, they may not always have the work from a WMS system for 8 hours of a shift. But our operators can, if they don't have the work, they can connect to a different site, and they can handle a multitude of edge cases. So I'll give you one specific example. We were working with a customer site where we were teaming with the autonomous solution, where Phantom we were doing trailer loads and unloads. So we were unloading trailers that were just coming in constantly through the day. And we had to set it up for an AGV to start to take the pallets and put that away. And that was just how our customer wanted us to onboard and sort of experiment with the technology, with the Phantom technology. And what we found was that the AGVs were expecting very precise locations of where the pallets needed to go. And we thought, oh shoot, we've never done this before. But it was literally within a day, it was just our operators were getting up to speed, and we found we can quickly train to that. And now it's one of those things where that same company is to a certain extent asking us, hey, can we support them when their vehicle is shut down? Because that's a common problem that happens with autonomous vehicles is that, and it's, I mean, I've experienced this myself in product development where problems occur. And when problems occur for us with a Phantom vehicle, our humans get right back in the in the remote seat and can get out of it. And that's really that human centric. We really believe in the human in the loop. So I'll pause there. Hopefully that answers a couple of those questions that came up.
I think that we covered quite a lot of things today. Of course, we could not go into detail of all the technical and commercial stuff. One question: do you support operations in Europe? I saw some question from the audience.
Yeah, great question. We've definitely got customers in our pipeline from Europe, and not just in Europe, but outside Europe as well.
Okay.
So if you are interested and have got workflows that you could see a use case for workflows for remote operations, please get in contact with us.
Wonderful. So I think that we finished. As I said, we saw a lot of things. Many, I think, new ideas. One very interesting. And then thank you all people, because as usual you've been very engaged, and the involvement is always very interesting from your side. I will send you an email, okay, just with these two presentations, and then I will also provide you the contacts, because there are two different things, okay. One thing is from the end user point of view, or integrator, I don't know what to say, for the Phantom solution. So you can contact, I will give you the contacts from Phantom's guys, so you can contact them for your specific application. On the other side, you will also have the SICK contact for in case you are willing to make a remote your vehicle, okay? So of course there is a huge job behind, but these people has all the technicians, all the people that can help you to develop your solution in the factory, in the warehouse, or in your vehicle, okay? So thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Aaron. Very interesting. Thank you, everybody. As I said, stay in touch, and let's see what brings the new technology that we will propose you here in AGV Network. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Alfredo. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alfredo.
Ciao, Aaron. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.